everyone, and welcome to another knife review. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 best knives under $100. And I just want to say up front, this is my personal bias, and that if you talk to 10 different knife guys on what are their top 10 favorite knives under $100, you're going to get 12 different answers. It's just an impossible question to answer. So I'm going to give a little bit of everything to everybody. First of all, I want to talk about the personal criteria I use for my top 10 best knives. The number one criteria is it has to be light. I love light knives. I want it to disappear in my pockets. I value lightness. I'm a through hiker. I did the Appalachian Trail with my family, and hikers measure their pain in ounces, and so I like light knives. The second criteria is that it has to be one-hand deployable and retractable, so all the nail nick knives were excluded. The third criteria is that it needs a pocket clip. I'm a guy that I don't like my knife bouncing around with my keys getting scratched up. I like my pocket clip knife up at the top of my pocket and my keys at the bottom of my pocket. The fourth criteria is that it needs to have a 4-finger grip. We're not talking about keychain knives here. I want a EDC quality knife. And the last one, which is the most important, it needs to cost less than $100. Before I get into the top 10, I have a couple of honorable mentions I want to talk about. This is one of the most painful things I've done, is trying to limit which are the most popular favorite top 10 knives. But honorable mention, I want to start out with the Kershaw Leek in S30V. The Kershaw Leek is a 3-inch blade, and it's 7-inch overall length. It's 2.5 ounces. Now, the normal Leek comes with steel handle, scales, and a blade that's made out of Sandvik 14C28N. Costs $45. They made one with CPM 154 steel that went up to $90. This one, when it came out, they took off the heavy steels and scales and put on these nice G10 scales, and they took off the Sandvik 14C28N cheap steel, and they put on a nice super steel S30V. It's got the safety assist there, but it's not really a problem because it just flies out and it's easy to retract. Some of the bigger knives, like the ZT770, when they put the safety assist, it's really sort of a chore to get back in. But not with the Kershaw Leek. It goes out nicely and then comes back nicely. Anyway, I had to exclude it because even though it initially came out at $100, on the secondary market there are so many avid Kershaw Leek collectors. I've seen it anywhere from $75 to $215. This is the knife that everybody collects. It's the knife that everybody had their father take them down to Walmart, and they got them a Kershaw Leek, and then they started collecting them. They make them in literally dozens of different handle scales, and it's a very collectible piece. And there are these Leek rabid collectors that bid the price up over $200, so I really had to exclude it from my under $100 price list, because even though it should be under $100, they made such limited quantities that it's over $200, and it falls into the hands of collectors like me. Spyderco will get a popular knife like the Delica, the Dragonfly, and they'll put a super steel on it, and they make it in larger quantities. I wish Kershaw would do the same. The other honorable mention knife I want to mention is the Ontario Carter Prime. It comes in at $99. It is a larger knife. It is 3.375 inches with the blade. The total length is 8 inches. It is a heavy knife at 5.24 ounces. It uses D2 steel. Comes in at $71 on the secondary market. You can get it at Amazon for that on the secondary market. It's designed by Robert Carter, who is Mel Pardew's grandson. As you know, Mel Pardew did a lot of designs for Benchmade. It's got a thick blade. It's 150 thousandths thick. It's heavy at over 5 ounces, which is the reason it was excluded from my list as a runner-up. But it's a very well-made knife. It's got full titanium handles with a 3D milled titanium click. It uses D2 steel with a DLC coating. It has a superior action on bearings. It's a wonderful knife. So if you're a guy that likes chunky knives, I'm not one of those guys, this is going to be the knife for you. Well, let's get in with the top 10, and I want to start it off with the Spyderco Delica coming in at number 10. This is not an ordinary Delica 4. It's the Delica 4 in ZDP 189. You can get it for $99 still. It's got a 2 7/8 inch long blade. The overall length is 7 1/8 inch. It weighs 2.5 ounces. It has the stainless steel skeletonized liner, so it's very rigid. And as I mentioned, it has a super steel ZDP 189. Comes in at $96. It is the industry standard for a utility knife. Almost everyone has a Delica. And so I just have to put it in there. It's a little bit difficult for me to do a one-hand closure on just because my hands are smaller and you need a little larger hands to manage this. But we're putting this one as the number 10 knife. It's a wonderful knife, utility knife, and it uses a super steel ZDP 189. It's a great knife. Number 9 is the SOG Flash 1. It has a 2.5 inch blade. The overall length is 5 3/4 inches. It is very light at 1.3 ounce. It's the second lightest knife in the top 10 for me. It uses an Auss-8 steel, which is acceptable even though it's a lower quality steel. It costs only $41 and is the second least expensive as well as the second lightest knife in my lineup. It has a safety assist like the Kershaw, but because it's small like the Kershaw leak, it's easy to close. And we're going to put this as our number 9 favorite knife. The number 8 favorite is going to be the Kizer Flashbang, costing only $68. It has a knife blade that is 3.07 inches long. The total length of the knife is 7.28 inches long, and it weighs 2.8 ounces. It uses a VG10 blade. Is made by Kizer, which is a Chinese manufacturer. It's part of the Vanguard series, which is their lower cost series. It's a Kuchihara design. It's wonderful. It flips amazingly well. The Chinese are competing with United States manufacturers not only in price but on quality. Spyderco gets there because they produce their knives with super steels. They're made in Japan. But Kizer makes it because they have wonderful flipping action. It's exquisite, and it's a complete joy to open and close. And this drop point blade, I think, is completely sexy. It just looks beautiful. It comes in as my number 8 knife. The number 7 knife, I'm going to put the Kershaw Skyline carbon fiber with S30V steel. This was a limited run. You can still get it on the secondary market for under $100. Unlike the Kershaw leak, there aren't as many Skyline collectors, I guess. The blade is 3.1 inches long. The total knife length is 7.375 inches. It weighs 2.5 ounces, and as I mentioned, it has a super steel, the S30V. The normal Skyline has the Sandvik 14C 28N steel and G10 handles. This one has a carbon fiber handle and the super steel S30V. It's just wonderful. They don't make it anymore, but you can still buy it on the secondary market for around $100. This is the hometown boy made good. They took off the G10 handle, put on carbon fiber. They took off the cheap Sandvik steel, put S30V steel, and it is a wonderful flipper. It's one of the best values possible. Great knife with a great steel and a great action. That's our number 7 knife. Coming in at number 6, you knew I was going to put this in there, the Ontario Rat 2, costing only $24. This is the best value in the group. It has a 3-inch blade. The total knife length is 7 inches long. It weighs 2 3/4 ounces. It uses Auss-8 steel, but has a very nice, thick, beefy blade. And the action is wonderful. The thumb stud just rockets that blade out of there. It is the least expensive, as I've mentioned, but it's a delight to open. This, in the orange handle scale, is a KnifeWorks exclusive. I like the orange color best, but it's made in a half dozen other colors. It comes in OD green, tan, brown, black, pink, orange. And at $24, everyone needs to own an Ontario Rat 2. Comes in at my number 6 knife. The number 5 knife, this is going to be a surprise to everyone. The Maxpedition Small Excelsa, coming in at $88. It's got a 2.9 inch blade made of D2 steel. And D2 steel is no chump steel. A lot of custom knife makers like Browse and Medford use it almost exclusively. It really holds an edge well even though it's not a stainless steel. It weighs 2.7 ounces. This is a titanium frame lock with a thumb stud deployment. It is a Sebenza killer. The Maxpedition is a great company. They mostly make gear bags and backpacks and holsters. They only made 2 knives that I know of, which are almost exactly the same. The Excelsa Large, which has a 3.6-inch blade, and then the Excelsa Small, which is this one, which has the 2.9-inch blade. It's got the angled thumb stud with great jimping that allows you to rocket that blade out of there, and the D2 steel. Like I said, it's got completely titanium handles. It's a great value with a great action. And the retail price is around $130, but you can easily get this on Amazon for $88. It's my number 5 knife. Coming in at number 4 is the Benchmade Mini Griptillian at $100. This one has the black coating on the blade, and it comes in at about $102 to $106. But they make uncoated blades that come in at around $94. They make a variety of colors for the handle, coated and non-coated blades. They have a drop point. This is the sheep's foot style blade. They have a thumb hole, which I have here. They also make a thumb stud. You can deploy it with a thumb hole or thumb stud, but you can also just release the axis lock and flip it out there. I just want to say that the axis lock is one of the strongest locks in the industry. They've tested it, and whenever you put it on a rotational stress machine, the blade will break before the axis lock fails. This personally is one of my most sentimental knives too, because it was given to me as a Father's Day present way back when, and this was the first knife I ever owned that was around a $100 knife, so I can't part with it. It's the Mini Griptillian by Benchmade. It's a Mel Pardue design. Coming in at number 3, you guys may have never even heard of this knife. It is a Chinese-made knife called the CH3001, costing only $53. It has a 3.3-inch blade. The overall length is 7.5 inches. It's the heaviest at 3.1 ounce. It has a D2 steel, and it's a Chinese company. The Chinese companies are competing with the U.S. makers not only in price but also in quality. The CH company is a mystery. I don't even know what it stands for. They have no website presence, but this knife is made with quality materials. It's got anodized titanium scales and a D2 tool steel for the blade. The action is what sets this knife apart. It runs on bearings and is completely smooth. I'll just let you look at this drop. It just drops like a Shirogorov Neon. And as a matter of fact, whenever I give this knife and the Shirogorov Neon to someone who's knife naive and doesn't know how much the Shirogorov Neon costs, they say that this knife has just as good action as the Shirogorov Neon. So you get a world-class action with quality materials for only $53, which makes this my number 3 favorite knife under $100. Coming in at number 2, another Chinese knife with excellent action, is the Kizer Dukes. This knife is ranked highly because it has an amazing flipping action. It flips out hard and it flips out fast every time. And it's 0.7 ounces lighter than the CH3001 and 0.4 ounces lighter than the Flashbang. Those are all very good knives with very good actions. This comes in at number 2. And the moment you've all been waiting for, what is my number 1 best knife under $100? It is the Spyderco Dragonfly in ZDP 189. It has a 2.25-inch blade. Overall length is 5.56 inches. It is the lightest knife at 1.2 ounces. And it also has the best steel, a ZDP 189, coming in Rockwell scores of around 64 to 65. It is the lightest knife with the hardest steel. And Spyderco, with their 50/50 forward choil, even though it's a small knife at 5.5 inches, you get a great 4-finger grip. It has wonderful jimping. It's light and expensive. It is the knife to rule them all. And there are our top 10. So there are my top 10 favorite knives under $100. There's a little bit of something in there for everyone. So I'm going to give away individual awards for each knife. First of all, for the best value in the group, I'm going to give it to the Ontario Rat 2. oops, I'm making a mess here. At $24, everybody needs one of these, and I got the Knife Works one in orange, but it's available in a variety of colors. The Rat 2, it just flips out of there. Everybody's going to like this knife. $24, well spent. The knife with the smoothest action goes to the CH3001. This thing is Sherogorov-like in its action. Look how nicely it returns to its place. It is just a joy to flip. And for the cost of $53, you'll never spend better money. The hardest flipping knife, the Kizer Dukes. Oh my goodness, if you're a guy that likes a flipper and you don't want to spend more than $100, get a Kizer Dukes. It flips like a maniac. You'll never be sorry. The prettiest knife, I'm going to go with the Kizer Flashbang. It has these beautiful green G10 scales. It's available in different colors. Also, they have black, I believe. But look at how pretty that drop point blade is. Oh, it's just a gorgeous knife. And it flips just like a Kizer. Flips great. So that's what I think is the prettiest knife. The knife voted most likely to be a Sebenza killer is going to be the Maxpedition Small Excelsa. It's got full titanium handles, a great thumb stud, a great action. D2 steel is super. So if you want a Sebenza but don't have $400 to spend on one, and you want a quality knife and full titanium, get the Maxpedition Small Excelsa. The Made in the USA Award. My favorite knife among the group Made in the USA would be the Kershaw Skyline in the S30V. Many of you like only US-made blades, and I just have to acknowledge that some of these are Chinese and Japanese made. So if you want a US blade, get the carbon fiber S30V Kershaw. It's a wonderful knife. The knife with the best steel. Well, this has to go to Spyderco. Both the Delica and the Dragonfly come in ZDP 189. It has a Rockwell hardness of around 64 to 65. It's wonderful. So if you have big hands and want a longer blade, get the Delica. If you have smaller hands and like the forward finger choil and like a knife that is less than half the weight of the Delica, get the Dragonfly. The knife I'm most likely to part with and that has the greatest sentimental value for me, that would be this Benchmade Mini Griptillian. This is the first knife I own that's around $100, and my children gave it to me as a Father's Day present way back when. The Benchmade knives, everyone with a frame lock wants a free-falling blade, and Benchmade, all their knives have a free-falling blade. It's easy to deploy. It's a wonderful knife. It's got a lovely black coating. It's just a beautiful knife, and I have great sentimental value because my kids got it for me. And then the most important category, which is the lightest and best, which is the Dragonfly. At 1.2 ounces, it's the lightest of the 10, and with the steel of ZDP 189, it has the best steel in the group, and it's just something that disappears in your pocket and has a blade so strong you just hardly ever have to sharpen it. I just love the Dragonfly. Well, I hope you've been able to find something you like in my favorite top 10s, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.